two basic functions of an asset manager. If you wanted to boil it down to like the essence of what an asset manager should be doing, it's to optimize outcomes for the investment and to mitigate risk, right? So you're trying to capture as much upside in the investment possibility as you can, and you're trying to take away as much of the downside as you can, right? So um, for us, our starting process is we look at I call it the MVP, but it's the mission, vision, and plan, right? So every project needs a mission, right? If you don't know where your destination is with your project, you don't know how you're going to get there. So we start off with establishing mission. What do you want to create here with this community?
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
John Thomson has 13 years of experience. He moved from single-family residential to multifamily residential 3 years ago and has since then created an asset management company for independent owners. He also works alongside the business with his daughter. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. The pleasure is mine. Sean, there are 3 questions I ask every guest who comes on the show. In 90 seconds or less, can you tell me, where did you start, where are you now, and how did you get there?
So do you want to know where I started in real estate or where I started in life?
Either one. Probably the real estate journey. That way we'll get this in the 20-minute window 20 on the
minutes,
show.
Right. So I started single family. I always wanted to be, something more than just a worker in my whole life. And I thought real estate was a way to do that. And I just never knew how to kind of get that as a business. And so I started in single family with a home investors franchise, the We Buy Ugly Houses guys.
Oh.
And, single family was great. I had a, small little business. I've never cared about being the biggest, the doing the 150 wholesales a year or whatever, anything like that. I want to do a good job, right? For me, it's about quality, not quantity. And so, my single family business just wasn't scaling to the level I needed it to, on a pace that I thought I wanted. And so I thought, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I always thought apartments were outside of my reach. I didn't think a regular, guy like me could do it. And I met someone who was into syndications and was a regular guy like me and was doing it, right? So I learned that, hey, it's possible for him. That means I can do it, right? So I convinced him to teach me how to do it. And then, it took a year or so to decide on whether or not to shut down my single family and move into multifamily. And then that was the case, and joined forces with my daughter as she was coming out of college. And now we have a small family business that does multifamily syndications. We just launched our asset management business as a third-party service. We thought that asset management was a critical, pivot point in success or failure in multifamily. It's where everything comes together and the critical decisions are made. So we wanted to build for ourselves in our business a best-in-class asset management program for us. And it turns out that there's a lot of people that need this help, right? They need it on some level. And so we thought, well, we built this out. Our business looks pretty efficient. It looks really good. We think we're doing a good job. Maybe we can help other people. And so that's what we launched. That was the genesis of launching our asset management business.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really interesting. It sounds like there was a pain point, or there was something along the way that you experienced either personally or you watched others experiencing that said, hey, we're onto something here. We need to launch this asset management business.
Yeah, well, for us, it was just a matter of wanting to be good, right? We just wanted to be really good at what we do. And I talked to investors that I respected that have been in this business a long time. I mean, when I say investors, I mean people that put capital into these deals. And their first question to me every time was, who's your asset manager? And I would say, well, we are. And, we're a new multifamily operation, right? So they would always say, okay, well, who else is on the team, right? And so I said, I'm going to be the best I can at this because this is critically important to investors. I want to have this locked down. And so we started researching what are the best practices in asset management? What's the best operations? How all this works. We called in experts. We talked to people that we know. We talked to other syndicators. And through this research, I discovered that there's a lot of syndicators that are just, like, I'm not a great asset manager. I'm personality wise the worst asset manager you could probably have. I'm great at big picture. I can make big decisions really quickly and rapidly, but a true asset manager is a very detailed, in the spreadsheets, on the phone calls every week. It's a grind type job, right? And so someone like me who's good at syndications, buying deals, finding deals, talking to investors, things like that, I'm not a great asset manager. So by nature, syndicators just don't make great asset managers, and a lot of them are trying to do the job, right? So they just need help doing it, I think. And then there's people that are great at it, but they want to focus on finding more deals or finding more capital to raise their business level, right? And so outsourcing that to somebody else is important to them, right? So we just found a need for it through our kind of desire to be good at it, what we do. And we thought, well, we've built this business, we think it's going to be substantial, so let's see if we can help other people.
Talk to me about, I mean, normally I would think of an asset manager as one of the key team members, especially on a syndication team. You've obviously you got your investor relations people, you got your acquisitions, but asset manager is a key seat on the bus. How do you guys as a company integrate into those existing teams? I guess just talking about that process, because I would imagine that's an interesting and kind of tricky interface, making sure that you're serving the customer, you're serving the other members. Like, I don't know, does that question even make sense, or am I just stumbling all over my words? Like, I feel
no, it does completely, and that's the first question I get from most guys, because they don't understand how we would fit in, because we're not a stakeholder, right?
Right.
And so the decision making process is still in place with a stakeholder. We don't make big decisions for the sponsor group or the stakeholders in the deal. We just do the day-to-day operations, right? So we take the tedious and the tedium away from the sponsors, right? So you don't have to be on the weekly call. We'll take care of the weekly calls. We'll make sure the property managers hitting their KPIs. We'll establish the KPIs for the property management team. We'll monitor, CapEx, how that's going. We'll make sure lease ups are happening. We'll make sure turns are happening. We'll make sure all that sort of tedious work is happening. And take all those things off the plate of someone that can go out and now find deals, right? So instead of being on phone calls and dealing with property management issues that are below $2,500 or whatever it is, that don't really need to be in the ownership seat,
right,
those decisions can be made downstream.
Yep.
So we're taking that sort of in between property management and ownership, and those tasks, those daily sort of tedium tasks, we're taking those off the lap or the desk of the ownership group. So but the decision making and the strategy is all still in the ownership's hands. The responsibility to do, a good job with the project is still part of the ownership's decision making process, their sponsor group or whatever, however they are structured. We're just taking the day-to-day grind stuff off their responsibility, and I think that is it's a hard concept, because I think most sponsors are just accustomed to being the asset manager, or bringing someone in on the sponsor team to be the asset manager, and that role still has to be filled in terms of like decision making, but it doesn't have to be filled on the day-to-day. So that you can outsource, and that's what we're providing.
Got it. Tell me, you've hit on a few things there. Just maybe there's some listeners that don't necessarily understand everything an asset manager may do. So aside from the things you've already mentioned, what are some other pieces of the puzzle that you guys pick up in this process?
Well, the two basic functions of an asset manager, if you wanted to boil it down to like the essence of what an asset manager should be doing, it's to optimize outcomes for the investment and to mitigate risk, right? So you're trying to capture as much upside in the investment possibility as you can, and you're trying to take away as much of the downside as you can, right? So for us, our starting process is we look at I call it the MVP, but it's the mission, vision, and plan, right? So every project needs a mission, right? If you don't know where your destination is with your project, you don't know how you're going to get there. So we start off with, establishing mission. What do you want to create here with this community? And then we create a plan or a vision to kind of get on that path, right? So the vision for us is the journey we're going to take. And so we start saying, okay, I'll give you an example. If we want to increase, let's say one of our core missions with the property is to create a safe environment. Well, how do you do that? So your vision would be to increase security, increase lighting, increase, amenities around the courtyard or whatever. And then the plan would be, how many lights do we need to put in, right? Or how many security systems do we need to put in? And so we break it down to all that. And if you start with those three steps, and then infuse that with communication with your property management group all the way through to your investors, and everybody's on that same mission, vision, plan. And then you drop in some accountability with KPIs on your, on your financials, on your property management group, on everybody involved that's trying to accomplish a goal. And then you layer in communication to make sure everybody's on the same page throughout the whole process. I think you're doing those two functions, right? You're giving yourself the best opportunity for upside, and you're mitigating your risk on the downside. And then, so some of the things we'll do on the risk side, we'll do insurance assessments, tax assessments, all those things that can get you on the financial side unexpectedly with tax increases. We'll fight taxes, when those come up. We'll make sure our insurances are optimized. Just things like that you don't always think about, but those things need to be done.
Absolutely, absolutely. How have you taken this role on without creating a new team member for every new sponsorship group you work with?
Well, so we are kind of doing that. So
Okay.
that's the objective, right? So it's not so if you're a dedicated asset manager and you're doing the day to day, property management is critical in all these multifamily operations. Everybody knows that. So if you have a great property manager and you're dealing with that property management team, and you have good ownership and you have good communication between the two, an asset manager on the just operating the day to day should be able to manage about 8 to 10 properties for a good asset manager.
Okay.
And so we're new, so we're just getting started, but we have a team members in place now that are ready, for clients to manage those clients. And as we grow, we're bringing in asset managers specifically to do this task, right? And then we'll just scale those people. So we have a dedicated person to those accounts, just like property management does. You have a regional manager for every 10 or 8 properties that they're doing. So we're going to do the similar model, but on the asset management side. And so that person will be dedicated to those properties and nothing more. That's all they'll do.
Got it. No, that's really, really fascinating. Tell me about technology. I mean, because one of the things, like you said, communication's a big piece of this equation. What are you guys implementing on the technology side, that is really making this probably more seamless?
Well, we're looking at different tools that are available now. We have everything's customized. So my wife is a wizard with spreadsheets, Excel and stuff. Before she worked with us, she managed about $1 billion worth of inventory for JCPenney's, and they do a lot of that work in Excel, and forecasting and things. She was the person that a buyer would decide, hey, I want this blue shirt, and they would come to them and say, okay, how many small, medium, larges go to every store in the country, and how are we going to allocate all these things? And her team would figure that stuff out, right? So financial modeling for her in Excel is pretty much second nature. So we've spent the last several months, maybe a year, building out our processes and systems to do this job for this business for us. And she's built all of our sort of internal systems, and we're utilizing that we have for other people's businesses as well. But we're also in communication with higher technology providers, sort of prop tech companies that are providing this service. To talk about some synergies there, right? So there are some prop tech companies that have a software application for like financial auditing and some of those financial things. They can't do the people part, right, but they can do some of the technology part. And so we're in communications with them to see if, hey, maybe this tool would be a better application for us that we can optimize the outcomes for our clients. But right now, everything we built. So maybe it could be a case of where we take our solutions and create a prop tech, solution for later on down the road. But that's what we're doing right now.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. So asset management, you guys, you said you optimize outcomes, you mitigate risks. You guys are bringing on somebody that's going to manage 8 to 10 properties, and that could be, I guess, a variety of clients. But I mean, that's a lot of back end kind of ticky tacky admin stuff that, for guys like you,
right.
I get lost when my eyes glaze over. It's like, I don't know, let's go buy something, but I can't quite, stay in the weeds that long. I stink at it. So you're speaking to my heart there.
But that's the whole point, really.
It really is. It really is. And I think the interesting part to this is that then it's one more way for people to scale. Like they could come to you and say, all right,
Right.
Sean, I'm going to take down 20 properties next year, and it's up to you to go out and figure out the asset managers, because then I don't have to worry about that piece. I don't have to find that team member to put on my own team. How do you guys, if you have already, but how do you guys work out billing? Like, how do you work out like onboarding? I mean, if you don't have that figured out and don't want to talk on the show, we can cut this part out. But I'm really just curious how someone
No.
integrates into your system. Like, how does that work?
Well, it's simple. So we have to figure out if we can even help somebody, right? So we don't want to take on clients that we can't drive value for, right? So I'm not gonna, if you're doing a great job and you don't need me, I'm not gonna take you on as a client.
Right.
If your property is unsalvageable, I'm definitely not taking you on as a client. I have to be able to drive value for somebody. I have to be able to optimize that upside and mitigate that downside, right? So if I think that we can do a great job for somebody, then there's a synergy there and we can work together, right? So our first step with anybody is we gather information from, someone that contacts us, and we look at their project and say, hey, can we provide value here? And if we can provide value here, then we start to have a conversation about, okay, what would this look like? Can you guys provide us the information we need? How does this work? And that's really the first step for us, though. It's, can we provide value? And in terms of onboarding, if we decide to take you on as a client, and the client wants to work with us, the first thing we do is create an asset management plan. We have to have a business plan to operate the property. A lot of operators already have sort of a framework of asset management plan, but we're going to build our own more in-depth asset management plan. And we'll look at everything, starting with the PSA, the PMA, all the agreements that you have signed already. We'll look at your insurance. We'll look at everything and try and figure out how to optimize moving forward. And we'll create an asset management plan. We'll get buy-in with the property management company. We'll get buy-in with ownership, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then we'll start to execute that asset management plan. It was kind of the thing I mapped out in the very beginning. That's where everything starts, is with your mission, vision, and plan. And we'll create a living document that does that as we move forward into the future. And we'll revise that as, annually as things change. But that's kind of how we structure and get things started. So first of all, can we drive value for this client? Secondly, let's gather the information that we need to create the asset management plan. And then third, we get buy-in from everybody and start executing. In terms of like fees, everybody sort of underwrites a 2% management fee into their structure almost every time, right? So we've got it figured out. I think that we can make that 2% asset management fee work for our business as well. So we have underwriting, and we can provide some due diligence, oversight, things like that are sort of additional services. But if you wanted us to just sort of do the day-to-day operation, admin stuff that we've discussed, that 2% fee would just be sent to us.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Very cool. I love that. Last question for you on this is, where in the process should someone reach out to you? And you mentioned the word PSA and things like that, so it sounds like fairly early on, but just curious what you would recommend to somebody if they're looking to acquire an asset and they're like, hey, you know what? Sean's group might be a great fit for asset management. When is ideal for them to reach out to you?
Anytime, really. I mean, if you have properties under management, we can help you probably. If you're trying to acquire properties, we can provide some sort of guidance to get there and then take over once you've closed. So really, kind of anywhere you are in that process, even if you have several properties that you may be struggling with asset management. I know a bunch of guys that have 6-8 properties, and they're just like, man, I just can't keep up. I have a person in the office that's managing the assets, and I just can't keep up. Right. For us, we're scalable, right? So the idea for us is to be able to take on 10 properties with an asset team. And then if you buy 5 more, we can just bolt on another asset manager, get them trained, get everything going in our systems. So our systems and processes are the strength that we have. And our training our new asset manager, just making sure they're on track, is really all we have to do, right? Because we have systems and processes that function throughout the system. So for us, it's scalable. So it really kind of, wherever you are in your portfolio life cycle, we should be able to step in and give you some assistance, and we can go through all that on the onboarding and see where we are.
Right. I love the idea of implementing a scalable solution That of course is the key to what we're doing here. Is the name of the show, which is doing things that we can scale, that we can grow, and
Right.
kind of have an infinite horizon or trajectory of growth there. And also, I think what you said there was great. We said the systems and processes are your strength. And that's true for any business, and no less in multifamily and asset management. So that's very, very cool. Sean, I have certainly enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for taking the time to come on and really break down the nuts and bolts of asset management and just the opportunity you see to build an asset management company and how you're going to use that company to then serve your clients here in the future, both inside of your own business and, like I said, also with other syndicators and other deal sponsors. So very, very cool. If our listeners want to get in touch with you and learn more about you, Sean, what is the best way to do that?
Well, there's two locations. So you can go to our Thomson Multi-Family Group.com website for our acquisitions business. Thomson's spelled a little bit uniquely as THOMSON, but it's Thomson Multi-Family Group.com there. And then if you are curious about our asset management business, you can go to UnionAssetAdvisors.com.
Union Asset Advisors, and make sure we include both of those, Thomson Multifamily Group and Union Asset Advisors, there in the show notes. Sean, thank you again for coming on the show today. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I appreciate you having me on.